So, after a long struggle in Israeli elections, Benjamin Netanyahu has finally figured out a way to stay in office as prime minister for 18 more months. Now, what does that have to do with what is going on right now with the coronavirus, uh, being seized with illness around the world, as written in Luke 21, verse 25? Well, for those of you who've been listening to my videos, you know that I have been talking about the peace plan of the century by Donald Trump ever since the words were uttered, and how it's a trap. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, I'm on the wrong article here. Benjamin Netanyahu was forced to promise annexation of parts of Judea and Samaria and the Jordan Valley if he became prime minister again. He was forced to. He did not want to do it. He did not want to have anything to do with it. I have proven that in the past, but now this article on Jerusalem Post comes up. Netanyahu, I'm confident annexation will happen in a couple of months. Netanyahu spoke in a video message at an online conference of the European Coalition for Israel in honor of the 100th anniversary of the San Remo conference. Israel will be able to apply its laws to, as Jerusalem Post likes to say, and I refuse to call it the West Bank, it is Judea and Samaria. Why is that important? It is important because Jeremiah 31, 30 and 31 is very explicit about the new covenant for Israel. And within the script of the new covenant is Israel being able to have the totality of Judea and Samaria. It says specifically Samaria. Once again, forget that Jerusalem Post always likes to reset itself every 5 seconds, or nearly so. 3 months ago, the Trump peace plan. Remember, folks, I've been telling you this. I believe this is the trap. Recognize Israel's rights in all of Judea and Samaria, Netanyahu said. President Trump pledged to recognize Israel's sovereignty over Jewish communities there and in the Jordan Valley. All right. So here we get to the nitty-gritty. In a couple of months from now, I'm confident that pledge will be honored and that we will be able to celebrate another historic moment in the history of Zionism. So when legally will Israel be able to pull this off? All right. The Trump peace plan would allow Israel to annex 30% of, as they say, the West Bank, but Judea and Samaria is more proper, including all settlements in the entire Jordan Valley, while providing the Palestinians with massive economic aid package to support their establishing a demilitarized state if they meet certain conditions, including stopping incitement, payment to terrorists, and instituting civil rights. The coalition agreement between Likud and Blue and White, signed last week, states that the annexation can be brought to a vote in the cabinet or Knesset on July 1st at the earliest. So we're looking at sometime in July when they plan on carrying this out. If Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu does not find another way to avoid this. But I don't think he's going to be able to avoid it this time. Now, the Palestinian Authority and Jordan, okay, they have been on a diplomatic blitz in recent weeks, lobbying the international community to condemn the possible annexation. France threatened at the UN Security Council on Thursday such a move would not pass unchallenged and shall not be overlooked in our relationship with Israel. Other EU states such as Germany, Estonia, Belgium made statements against annexation at the UNSC, as did the UK. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs Joseph Borrell said that any annexation would constitute, and I quote, a serious violation of international law. You see what's coming, don't you, folks? So we have the lockdown, as written in Luke 21, verse 25, I believe it is. We'll go to it. I'll just make sure. All right. Yes. 25. And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth Sunoke of the Gentiles. Okay? Sunoke, distress, anxiety, anguish, something held together in close, hard tension from difficult circumstances that won't move, to be locked in. Locked in? Are you locked in your houses today because of lockdowns, as they say? Is that what's happening to you right now in Detroit, in London, in Madrid, in Rome? Is that what happened? Is that what's happening to you right now? Okay. All right. So we have this. So let's continue examining this. All right. So obviously, the Pelesheth and the children of Moab, Jordan, are not going to roll over and play dead on this. Okay? And of course, the Europeans, the cross carriers, will stand with Israel's enemies. They always do. So, since we know that Jordan is not going to stand for this, let's go to, where did I see this? Right here. All right. It says by Albert Wolf on FP News. Annexing the so-called West Bank, Judea and Samaria, will destabilize Jordan, he says. In the run-up to the previous general election in Israel in April, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledged to annex all of the settlements in West Bank, as he puts it, Judea and Samaria is more proper, formally making them a part of Israel proper. Netanyahu recently toyed with the idea of annexing the Jordan Valley before today's election, until the Attorney General told him he couldn't do it. This tough talk on territorial, and the reason why he said he couldn't do it is because of the way the election was in limbo. Well, it's no longer in limbo, you see. This tough talk on territorial seizure is in part intended as a quid pro quo to the far-right parties to secure a law that would provide Netanyahu with immunity from prosecution for corruption. He's got no choice but to do this now. See what kind of pressure was put on Netanyahu against Israel. He didn't want to do this. He wants no part of it. I've proven it in articles in the past. He wants no part of annexation, but he's got no choice. Otherwise, if he keeps doing what he has done before, he will lose all support in the right wing. And he is facing prosecution right now. So he cannot lose his enemy. He cannot lose his friends right now. All right? The two most obvious implications of the annexation or any other of its constituent parts are the end of the peace process, the end of Israel as a Jewish majority state. However, annexation carries with it other dangers. Well, it's the end of the so-called peace process. Well, there never was a peace process, folks. With the exception of the minor border alterations that were part of the 1994 Israel-Jordan peace deal, every alteration to the borders of the British Protectorate of Transjordan and later the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan has threatened to destabilize Israel's neighbor to the east. And that is correct. But there's a problem here, folks. And this problem, as I pointed out before so many times, is right here. If I can find it, I should have pulled this up before I started. Let's see if I can get this. All right. Right here. Right here. This right here is the land that was promised by the British in the Balfour Declaration, and the British reneged. They wanted to make friends with the Arabs. They did not want the Jews to have too much power, so they gave most of the power and the wealth to the Arabs, and kicked the can of the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob down the road. But you see, folks, the world's pigeons are coming home to roost. You can't kick the can down the road forever. So let's go back to this particular article. 3 years after the Arab-Israeli War of 1948 and the foundation of the State of Israel, Jordanian King Abdullah I was assassinated by a partisan of the former Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, nearly turning Jordan into a failed state. This resulted in a succession crisis between Abdullah's sons, the future King Talal and Prince Naif. Talal's reign proved to be erratic, with rumors circulating about his mental health. He subsequently abdicated the throne, allowing Prime Minister Tawfiq Abu al-Huda to establish a regency until his son Hussein came of age to take the throne. After the 1967 Six-Day War, the delicate demographic balance of Jordan was nearly turned upside down once again. A significant number of Palestinians who had inhabited the so-called West Bank fled to Jordan and Kuwait. This posed unenviable problems for the young King Hussein, who was not until Black September in 1970, when the Jordanian armed forces expelled the Fakhtinian Fedayeen, which had been operating as a state within a state, that King Hussein was able to reestablish a political supremacy within the kingdom. Bottom line is, annexation of the Jordan Valley and any part of Judea and Samaria is going to cause upheaval in Jordan. Essentially, it appears, I say it appears, a war will start as a result. Right here it says mass protests could erupt in Amman and throughout Jordan, possibly leading to the overthrow of the Hashemite monarchy. Since the outbreak of the Arab Spring, the downfall of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan has been over-predicted. Nearly every street demonstration has led some experts to predict that King Abdullah II would be soon overthrown. However, earlier this year, the king refused to extend the 1994 peace agreement, 25-year territorial leases of some borderlands to Israel, in part because of domestic pressure. So you see, folks, Israel does have to act after all, doesn't it? The peace agreement, the 25-year territorial leases, is essentially over. So why not annex the Jordan Valley? It is difficult to predict the precise reaction of Jordan's Palestinian population to Israel's annexation of parts of Judea and Samaria, but it would not be in Israel's favor. Mass protests could erupt in Amman and throughout Jordan, comparable to those seen in Egypt and other countries during the Arab Spring, or more recently in Algeria and Sudan. Such protests could lead to the overthrow of the Hashemite monarchy itself. Similarly, another refugee crisis prompted by Palestinians fleeing from territory seized by Israel, like the refugee crisis of the late 1940s after the Six-Day War, could have the potential to scramble, if not entirely undo, Jordan's Byzantine and often fragile politics. The Hashemites' traditional power base has been among the East Bank Jordanians. Interesting. East Bank Jordanians. I've talked about this before. An influx of Palestinians from the West Bank, as they say, I say Judea and Samaria, who have traditionally been critical of the monarchy and its treatment of the Palestinians, could upend the domestic balance of power against the ruling family. Jordan would not be the first Arab state to be destabilized because of a refugee problem. Many of Lebanon's crises in the 20th century were the product of refugees' crisis. Now, so the question is, what will this lead to? Let's go back to Zechariah 14. Verse 1. Behold, the day is coming, saith not the Lord, Jehovah. Don't call him the Lord, that is a name of Baal. His name is Jehovah, the Father. Learn to love his name and respect it and honor it. Spoil will be taken from you and will be divided in the midst of you, because I will gather the Goy. Doesn't say, oh, it does say all the Goy against Jerusalem to battle. Remember what we just read? A violation of international law. And the city will be, I want to go to regular King James because this is messing me up. All right. For I will gather Goy. In Strong's Concordance, it doesn't say all Goy. I don't know why they added that there in the, that's the reason why I like to use King James in Strong's Concordance. Using the Strong's Concordance, and sometimes I like to use Aramaic version, but problem is they don't have that with Strong's Concordance. Against Jerusalem, to battle. The city shall be taken. The real city of Jerusalem is East Jerusalem, but he will show here what part of the city will be taken. And the houses rifled, and the women ravished or raped, and half of the city will be deported, will be exiled. And the rest of the city, which is West Jerusalem, shall not be exiled or cut off from the city. Then Jehovah, that's when he takes action. At that particular point in time, we should see the sun and the moon, the signs in the sun and the moon, great earthquake, and the stars or the meteorites falling from the sky, while there is probably still a lockdown going on. Now, as I pointed out to a lot of people, and I think I pointed this out on YouTube, that you can expect a slight dip with this coronavirus in the summertime, but expect a horrible, horrible plunge when wintertime comes. You got to understand that this coronavirus has now mutated into 30 different strains in 3 months. That's not good. Now, there's a lot of people that get it and do not feel a thing. There's a lot of questions that are not answered. But what I'm saying is, this is going to happen, I'm telling you, when a lot of the nations are in lockdown. Because it is written in Luke 21 and verse 25. Fight against the Goy, the day, and he devour the day of battle. That will be the day. That will be the day of Jehovah's wrath. And his feet will stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. So his face, he will be facing East Jerusalem, standing on the Mount of Olives. And the Mount of Olives will cleave in the midst thereof, toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a great valley, half the mountain shall remove toward the north and half toward the south. And you will flee to the valley. Those that are fleeing from East Jerusalem will flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach to Azal, and you shall flee, as you fled before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Because there's going to be an earthquake in Israel. And Jehovah Elohim will come and bring all the Kodesh with him. That is the gathering. That is, I believe it's Ezekiel 36. Let's go look at it. It'll be this day, in that cloudy and dark day. Cloudy and dark, Ezekiel 34. It's on that day. That's when he will be like a shepherd looking for his scattered flock. Read Ezekiel 34. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light will be rare. It will be dark. It'll be a cloudy and dark day. Doesn't say that the light shall be clear nor dark. It doesn't say that. It says it's going to be dark and congealed. Folks, do you know what that means? Thick. The darkness will be thick darkness, as the plague of darkness on Pharaoh. One day to know Jehovah. That is the day that people are going to know who Jehovah is. It's not like it's written in King James. You need to read it like it's written in Hebrew. Day, night, evening. Time, a light. In that day, living waters will come up out of Jerusalem, half toward the former sea and half toward the hinder sea. In summer? No. In fruit. And in harvest time. So that ought to be interesting. That's going to be right around the season of summer and autumn. Jehovah shall be king over all the land. In that day there shall be one Jehovah, and his name one. He only has one name. It's not God. It's Jehovah. Do not disrespect his name by trying to replace his name with another name. All right? All the land will be turned as a plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. It shall be lifted up. It shall rise, and inhabited back in her place. Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananiel unto king's wine presses, and men will dwell there in it again, and there shall be no more destruction, but Jerusalem will be safely inhabited. In other words, the invasion is going to fail. The invasion by Jordan from the east. Now there's going to be a great plague where Jehovah will smite the people that fight against Jerusalem, that wage war against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. I've gone over this before. Haggai 2, verses 18 through 22 says that the destruction of the Gentiles is going to be every man against his brother. Are they then going to be firing nuclear missiles at each other? We shall see. It shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult, confusion. Talked about this over and over again. Haggai, the prophet, records. In fact, I should just go ahead and go to it now. All right? It says right here, again the word of Jehovah came to Haggai in the 24th day of the month. What month? It was the 9th month. That would be Hanukkah, saying, speak to Zerubbabel, means begotten in Babylon, And he was the leader who returned the exiles from Babylon, which is to mean come out of Babylon, come out of her my people. Governor of Judah, saying, I will shake the heaven and the earth. The sun will turn dark and the moon into blood, and stars will be falling, meteorites will be falling from the sky. And I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms. I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the Gentiles, the Goi. I will overthrow the chariots of those that ride in them, and the horses and the riders shall all come down, every one by the sword of his brother. This is also sort of mentioned in the sixth trumpet and the sixth vial. All right. Their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth, and it shall come to pass that a great tumult, confusion shall rise up from Jehovah shall be among them, and they will lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. So it's not only brother against brother, it's neighbor against neighbor. That would be neighboring nation against neighboring nation. Sounds like nuclear weapons to me. Just said it sounds like it. We're actually going to be able to see what it actually is when that day comes. And Judah will fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold, silver, and apparel in a great abundance. And this plague up here will affect the horse, the mule, the camel, and the donkey, and all the beasts in these tents. This plague. Think we're out of the woods yet when with the lifting of some of the lifting of the restrictions? Be careful, because as soon as you're not looking, as soon as you think you got your freedom, bam, just like that. Folks, these are not hypotheses and theories and stuff like that that I'm piping up on today. I'm just telling you that Benjamin Netanyahu, he's got no choice. He's got to follow up now. He's been backed into a corner politically. He's got no choice but to do it. Otherwise, nobody will defend him in the court of law. Just won't. He knows this. I think they're going to do it. And if they do it, this guy's right. Now, what I mean he's right, I don't mean his mentality toward Israel is right. I'm just saying he is right that it will destabilize Jordan. But see, Jordan, the problem is Jordan, they're on land that does not belong to them. It belongs to Israel. This is the land that the nations, the Goi, promised to Israel. The people who live in Jordan today are squatters, and they know it. This can't stay the same forever. The status quo cannot remain. So what I'm saying is, all these warnings that you've gotten from preppers, from people like me, about what this particular coronavirus can do, do not think you're out of the woods. Don't do it for a second. Let me show you something. Do you realize if something happens between now and the time that people are finally allowed to go about their business, if something happens in between then, look at, let's see, was it this one? I think it was this one. Here we go. Look at this. Look at this, folks. Do you understand what the ramifications of this headline is? You can't throw
All right, let's go to
food
Dave
out.
Daniels now. Dave is the
You
vice
just
president of the
can't do it.
Wisconsin Farm Bureau. He's a farmer in
I
the
need to
state
stop
of.
this. All right. So you have farmers dumping their milk, throwing out their eggs, and plowing under healthy crops. This food never went to waste before. So which mouths are not going to be fed as a result? So if anything hampers the how would I call this, the effects, or I should say the trending from being locked down into going back into normal business and productivity again, if anything jumps out and stops it, it is going to be a worldwide disaster. I'm telling you. Do not be fooled. So he says, we're not going to let the food die. We'll go in and destroy it, said Mr. Grooms, the 70-year-old farmer of Fancy Farms in Plant City, Florida. It's a mental thing. You don't want your seed or your crop rot and suffer. To see your crop rot and suffer. All right? So this is what's happening all over the place. You can't destroy all this food without there being consequences. You can't shut down 25% or more of the meat packaging plants and throw the meat away. You can't do that without being consequences. And this is happening right now. Imagine if something worse came between now and economic recovery. I'm telling you, watch out. Watch out. Look both ways. Look forwards and backwards. Keep your ears open. Keep your eyes open, folks. Because just when you think they have it under control, watch out.